Let me be straight with you right now. The Buffalo Bills are quietly blowing up their own roster, and most fans have absolutely no idea it is happening. Think about this for a second. While everyone is out here debating quarterbacks and Super Bowl predictions, Brandon Beane is in that front office making move after move that could completely flip this roster upside down before a single regular season snap is even played. We are talking released cornerbacks, players fighting for their lives to stay on a 53-man roster, wide receivers on the trade block, and a secondary that looks nothing like it did 6 months ago. Two massive stories are breaking inside the Bills organization right now, and when you line them up side by side, they paint a very clear picture of exactly where this franchise is headed. So buckle up, because this off-season is getting wild fast. And honestly, can you blame Buffalo for shaking things up? Bills Mafia has watched this team come so close so many times that close does not even feel like a compliment anymore. This fan base wants a Lombardi trophy. Full stop. So every single roster decision this off-season carries enormous weight, and some of these moves are about to change everything. Now here is the question you need to sit with. Is Buffalo actually building a Super Bowl roster right now, or are they tearing things apart at the worst possible time? Let us start with the first story, and this one genuinely surprised a lot of people paying attention. The Bills officially cut cornerback MJ Devinure. Now before you scroll past this thinking it is just another low-level roster move, pump the brakes. This situation is more layered than it looks on the surface. Buffalo was not just randomly interested in this guy. According to reporting from The Athletic, the Bills had their eyes on Devinure all the way back before the 2024 NFL Draft when he was coming out of Pittsburgh. That is not casual interest. That is a front office that genuinely believed this player had real potential in their defensive system. And you can understand why. Devinure posted a blazing 4.35 in the 40-yard dash, which put him among the fastest defensive backs in that entire draft class. For a Bills team that desperately needed speed and length on the outside, he checked real boxes. Reports even suggested Buffalo viewed him as a potential boundary corner because his arm length was pushing close to 33 inches. That combination of speed and size at corner is something teams hunt for every single draft cycle. So he lands on Buffalo's practice squad in December. Things are looking up. Then almost immediately, everything flips. The Bills had to release him just 1 week later because kicker Matt Araiza got hurt and Buffalo needed to bring in veteran kicker Michael Badgley to replace him. Devinure got caught in the crossfire of a roster number situation that had absolutely nothing to do with his performance. He signs back on a reserve and futures deal this offseason, which looked like he was finally going to get a real shot at making an impact heading into training camp. Now he is gone. Cut. Released. Never played a single official snap for the Buffalo Bills. But here is what this move is really telling you. Drop a comment right now. Do you think Buffalo is making the right moves in the secondary, or are they cutting too many guys too soon? This is not just about one player being released. Look at the full picture of what has happened in Buffalo's secondary over the past several months. The Bills traded Kaiir Elam to the Las Vegas Raiders. They let Dane Jackson walk. Tre'Davious White hit free agency. Ja'Marcus Ingram got claimed off waivers by the Houston Texans. And then the Darius Slay situation happened where Buffalo made a move to bring him in and Slay never even showed up to the building. That is an enormous amount of turnover at one position group in a very short window of time. Brandon Beane has basically admitted out loud that this secondary is still a work in progress. He even kept the door open for Tre'Davious White to potentially return later this offseason, saying you never fully close the door on a player of that quality. When a general manager says something like that publicly, it tells you the depth chart is not as locked in as the team might want fans to believe. Buffalo also went back-to-back drafting defensive backs, taking Ohio State corner Davis Ignozanen in the second round after already using a high pick on Maxwell Heiston the year before. Beane's explanation was straightforward. Secondaries get destroyed by injuries every single season, and Buffalo lived that reality last year cycling through corners just trying to stay functional on defense. So Devinure getting cut is not a story about one guy failing. It is a story about how brutal and unforgiving the competition has gotten inside that defensive backroom. But wait until you hear about the next guy fighting for his life on this roster, because this situation hit even harder. Jordan Hancock. Remember when people were genuinely excited about this pick? When Buffalo selected Hancock in the 5th round, there was real optimism. Fans were talking about him as a long-term piece, maybe even a future replacement for some of the veteran names that were eventually going to age out of this secondary. He had versatility. He had athleticism. He had real upside coming out of Ohio State, where he played multiple positions in the defensive backfield. Now he might not even make the final 53-man roster. That is an absolutely insane fall from where the expectations were just a year ago. The problem started before this off-season even kicked off. Nobody seemed to know exactly what position Hancock was going to play at the NFL level. And that uncertainty became official when Brandon Beane publicly admitted after the draft that the Bills themselves are still figuring out where Hancock fits in this defense. That is a difficult thing to hear about a player entering his second season. Beane talked about valuing versatility, but he also said it would take training camp representatives to really determine where Hancock belongs long-term. Here is the harsh truth about versatility in the NFL. Sometimes it means you are a chess piece that a coaching staff can move around. Other times it means you have not nailed down a specific role yet, and that can get you cut before you ever reach your potential. Look at the bodies Buffalo added to this roster this offseason. They signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They brought in Geno Stone. They re-signed Damar Hamlin. Then they drafted another versatile defensive back in Jalen Kilgore. Hancock is now buried in a competition where there might only be 4 safety spots available on the entire depth chart. Last season, Buffalo carried 6 corners and 4 safeties. Hancock was listed at safety. But with Joe Brady now running the show as head coach and Jim Leonhard installed as defensive coordinator, this defense could be built completely differently than what Hancock prepared for. If Brady and Leonhard do not see him as a true safety, maybe they try sliding him back to nickel corner, where he actually played more than half his snaps at Ohio State during his final season. But even that spot is suddenly crowded because Buffalo already signed DJ Alfred after moving on from other pieces. Hancock is now competing against veterans, newer draft picks, and guys with clearly defined roles. And here is the cold reality. Buffalo under Brandon Beane has not hesitated to move on from 5th-round picks when things are not clicking. They already released linebacker Edorian Ulofoshio. They already moved on from wide receiver Justin Shorter. Hancock cannot afford one bad week in training camp. Every single rep matters for him now. There was a moment where people genuinely thought Jordan Hancock was going to be a core piece of Buffalo's future defense. Right now, he is just trying to survive final cuts. But the roster drama does not stop there, because the wide receiver room just got extremely interesting too. Keon Coleman. The name alone is enough to start a debate inside Bills Mafia right now. This situation is genuinely complicated because there are real arguments on both sides. On one hand, Coleman was a massive disappointment last season. 38 catches, 404 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. For a player taken 33rd overall in the draft, those numbers are nowhere close to what Buffalo expected. There were also reports of maturity issues, multiple games where he was a healthy scratch despite being physically available, and a playoff exit that reportedly led to owner Terry Pegula directly calling Coleman out. That is not a good situation for any young player. Trade rumors started flying almost immediately. Reports surfaced that teams called about Coleman at the Combine and again before the owner meetings. Analysts suggested that if Buffalo moved him, the return might only be a late-round draft pick because his trade value took a serious hit after last season. One hypothetical deal floating around had the Rams potentially sending a 2027 4th-round pick to Buffalo in exchange for Coleman plus a 5th-round selection. That is not exactly a blockbuster return for a former first-round receiver. But here is where it gets really interesting. Brandon Beane shut all of that down publicly. He confirmed teams called. He confirmed Buffalo said no every single time. And then Beane went further by saying the organization genuinely believes Coleman's best football is still ahead of him in 2026. Head coach Joe Brady backed that up even stronger by saying he was one of the loudest voices pushing for Buffalo to draft Coleman in the first place. Brady even told Coleman directly that having Brady as his coach was going to be the best thing that ever happened to his career. That is serious organizational support for a guy who had a rough first year. But the competition around him just got really serious too. Buffalo traded for DJ Moore to become the clear-cut number 1 receiver. Khalil Shakir is locked in as a trusted option for Josh Allen. Joshua Palmer is still on the roster. And then the Bills drafted Skylar Bell, who scouts and analysts have been buzzing about as a potential steal who could move up the depth chart faster than people expect. Mel Kiper even went on record saying Josh Allen is going to absolutely love playing with Skylar Bell. When Kiper says something like that, it gets attention. Some reporters already pointed out that last season Buffalo occasionally chose to play an injured Joshua Palmer over a healthy Coleman. That kind of detail speaks volumes about where Coleman stood with the coaching staff. And speaking of Palmer, he is now showing up in trade rumors himself because Buffalo could free up more than $10 million in cap space by moving him after June 1st. He dealt with ankle injuries all last season, ended up on injured reserve, and never developed into the reliable secondary option the Bills were hoping for when they gave him that 3-year contract. So now you have this intense three-way battle developing between Coleman, Palmer, and Skylar Bell for spots in this receiver rotation. And whoever impresses Josh Allen the most in training camp is going to determine who sticks around and who gets shown the door. Buffalo is not just making random off-season moves. Every single one of these decisions is connected. Beane and Brady are drawing a clear line between the players they trust and the players they are moving on from. Josh Allen is in the prime of his career. The Super Bowl window is real and it is not going to stay open forever. Bills Mafia has had enough heartbreaking postseason exits to last a lifetime. This roster is being rebuilt with urgency, with accountability, and with zero patience for underperformance. Young players are finding out fast that draft position does not protect you. Potential does not protect you. Only production protects you. The next few months of OTAs and training camp are going to be absolutely must-watch for anyone who follows this team. Players are going to win jobs. Players are going to lose jobs. Some guys Bills fans expected to be part of this run might not even be on the team when Week 1 arrives. And maybe that is exactly the energy this team needs to finally break through. Now I want to hear from you. Who is your biggest concern heading into Bills training camp right now? Is it the secondary depth? Is it Kaiir Elam? Is it Jordan Hancock fighting for roster survival? Drop a name in the comments and tell me exactly what is worrying you most about this Bills roster right now. Because Bills Mafia does not do quiet, and I know you have got opinions. This season is massive. Buffalo knows it. The players know it. And now you know exactly what is happening behind the scenes. Stay locked in, because this off-season is only going to get more intense from here.